Hey guys, and welcome to the second video of the React tutorial of the things about ReactJS. This tutorial, as you saw in the title, we're going to work on composing components and also props. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this nice Hugh Jackman user profile right here made by Travis Wilson. I'll leave a link down in the description, and we're going to make it into a React app that is not all this HTML, but just React components. Well, not just React components, but you know what I mean. So here we go. We're going to go ahead and copy that. Go to our terminal, and we're going to go ahead and use create React app, and we're going to say user dash profile, right? And let that go. All right, and then once that is done, we're going to go ahead and CD into that. It's going to user profile, and we're going to also just do an npm start so we can start up our server. And there we go, we got our stock welcome to React app. So we're going to go ahead into that folder. Let's see, cd user profile, and then Sublime right there. Yeah, that's what I want. All right, and inside of our source folder, we got our app.css. We're going to go ahead and take all that stuff out of there. We're going to go to our user profile by Travis Wilson and get all of that CSS that he has right here. Copy that and put it right in here. We save that, and then in our app.js, we're just going to take everything out of here and keep that for right now. And then our index.css, we can keep that the way it is and keep that the way it is. All right, so now in our app.js, we're going to go ahead and get that HTML. So we go over here and we get all this HTML as well. And I'm just going to take that out. Boom, we got all our HTML for our user profile. So we got our container here. And this is, this itself is just a React app. So if I save this and I go to the thing, you'll see there's a problem with it. And the problem is that we don't have, it's all made by classes and not class names. So if we go back over here and we find all the classes and we make them all class name, because in JavaScript, class is a reserved word for making classes in JavaScript. So we have to use class name for the attribute for making our classes in HTML. So if we go back over to the thing, you see that we have our nice user profile. So now, what are React.js components and how do we make them and how do we use them and what are props? So first, React.js components are usually just a way to organize your web application so that you can reuse things instead of having to, write the HTML for it over and over again. And that's what React.js is all about. It's about making reusable components. So this here could be a reusable component because there's something that says followers and something that says following, but they both have the same style. Or movies 56, plays 29, they all look the same. They're just different values. And Hugh Jackman could be one, and this whole header could be one. So we're just going to go ahead and extract all these components from React, and as well as use some props. So first thing we need to do is figure out what we're going to extract. So I'm going to go ahead and take the header container and make that a header by itself. I'll take that right here. And right here, we're just going to say that we're going to have a header component, header React.js component. And we're just going to use this syntax to put our header component inside of our application. So now let's go ahead and make that header component. I like to make a nice folder for our components, and it's going to call it components. And inside there, we're going to make a file called header and React.js. And then we're going to make a header right inside here. So now if we look at our header, we have a lot of stuff. We have still a lot of things we can do with this. So this is just one component. We go over here, and if I go to my application, it will say there's something wrong because I haven't imported header from my components folder. So if I import and I use this header and from header, nope, from components and header. So if I go back to the application, you'll see that we have our nice little header there. Still, it looks the same, exact same. It's going to look the exact same throughout the whole tutorial, but the whole point of this is to get you to understand props and components. So now, back into our component, you'll see that whenever we, call the header component, so if I put two of these and I save it, you'll see in our application that we actually have the header twice. That's the point of this. This is so we can make this and make it reusable and use it as much as we want or as little as we want. So now I go back and I go ahead and start extracting more components from this. So right here we have some stats that we want to get. So we're going to go ahead and extract that and make that into a component. And the best thing about a component for React is that um, it doesn't have to be this whole syntax up here. So let me go ahead and explain this real quick. ReactJS components are actually just functions, but um, since ES6 came out, they adopted the whole class syntax where it extends the component. But I can also make a ReactJS component without having to use its export class and then name of the component and all that stuff. I could just use a function. So if I go down here and I say export and I say function, and this function is going to be stats, right? So we're going to call it header stats, and I give it that. The only thing that this needs to take now is a props uh, that it can take is a props attribute or argument, and then all this needs to return is some JSX or a component itself. So if I return what I just copied, first we're going to look at this without the header stats at all. So if we go back, you'll see that we're missing the whole musicals and all the other stuff that we had right there. And then we can go ahead and use this component just like any other um, component that we have. And we say right here, header stats, just like that. And if we go back to our application, you'll see that we have now our movies and all that stuff. So that is absolutely great. Now let's go ahead and do that for the rest of this. So what I want you to do is just go ahead and play with the idea of making components like that. You can put them in the same file, or you can put them in another file in your components folder or wherever you want to put it. Just see how you can organize this so it can look a little bit better. So when we look at this again in another lifetime, we can understand what's going on without having to, dig through the HTML. So go ahead, I implore you to go ahead and try to do this on your own before I do it. It looks like you're still here. So let's go ahead and do that thing. So here we have a nice little header tag, header class div, and we are going to go ahead and take out this SVG. What this SVG is probably the menu button. So if I take it out, we see in our application that this menu button goes away. So we're just going to head and take that out and make it menu button. Since it doesn't do anything, we don't really need to do much, but do what we did down here. So we say export function, and I don't even need to export it, but I do just in case I want to use it somewhere else. And props, and we don't even need props there, thank goodness. And we're going to return that SVG. And I'm also going to do it for the search button that we saw in the top right corner, or yeah, search button. So search button / boom, and then right down here again, export function search button, search button, and then return that. And then you can already tell that looks a whole lot better and a whole lot easier to look at. We don't have to look at the SVG for the menu button. We just know that the menu button is there. So now, if we go back to our application, it still looks the same. But now, what if I wanted to have two menu buttons? That's all I would have to do. I wouldn't have to copy all of this SVG or anything. I just have to use the menu button component. So we save that. And we go back to our application, and you'll see that we have two of these nice little hamburger menu buttons. All right, so now I'll take that out. Last thing we got here is the header for the name and the actor and the tag and the tags. So we're actually going to do something for the tags themselves, but that's it. We're not going to do anything with the header name because we don't really need to. So we'll take that out, and we're actually going to say tags, which is going to be a variable with our tags in it, and put this as JavaScript. So we're going to say tags.map. Uh-oh. And what this is going to do is going to render some components for us, those components we just erased. So that's going to be a span, and then that's going to be class name equals tag. And then what's the, oh gosh, this tag variable is going, what this tag, yeah, tag variable is going to have is going to have an actor and producer in an array. So we're just going to get from that array that name, I guess, and close that span. And right here, we're going to print out that name. So we say name, just like that. And right up here, right above our return method for our render function, we go ahead and say tags equals an array with actor and producer. All right. And let's make that look a little bit better. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Good. So now if we take this out and we go back to our application, oh, I gotta put this as well. So it's an actual variable that I declared. And we go back to our application, again, it looks the exact same, but now I can go up here and say actor, producer, manager, if I wanted to. And you'll see that it now says manager in the same style as actor, producer, and manager. Um, so now, again, I'm going to explain something about this whole, class header extends component thing. So this is a class named header that extends the ReactJS component. So that component must have a function called render, and this render function is going to render whatever the component needs to render to the DOM. So this render function must return some kind of JSX that's going to be put out onto the page. So now, last thing we need to do is, actually that's it. We are done with our header. So now, if we go back to our app.js, you'll see that we've already cut down our our HTML a lot. So now we're actually going to take this overlay header and move it into the header itself, so it's not just hanging out. Uh-oh. Boom. And surprisingly enough, we could just have that as a React component as well. So I say overlay header, and I'll show you what that overlay header actually is doing right after this. And I can just make it a variable. So say const overlay header, and we're going to say make a function expression that just returns this thing. Boom. So that should just go ahead and return that just like that. And we say overlay header right here. And if we go back, I'll show you what the overlay header was. If you look at this and you inspect this right here, this little slide thing, that is our overlay header. It's just making a nice little style for our user profile, which I love, by the way. I applaud Travis. I think that's what his name was. Travis? Travis, is that your name? Yes, Travis Williamson. Absolutely great. So that is it for that. And now we have to get on to props. So what is this props variable that I passed into, the header stats? The props variable is just the attributes that you pass in, or the variables that you pass in to your React component. So say this React component here relies on the name of the user. Our names of our users are not going to always be Hugh Jackman. So we could go ahead and say this is user, and then we go up here, and inside our class, if we're in a class and we're using our render function, we go up here and we get our props by saying I want to get the user, so this is going to deconstruct from props the user this dot props, right? And what will happen in our application is it'll say that user is not a thing. User is actually not a variable, but it won't. It'll just be nothing. It'll be undefined. So if we go back to our app.js and we go right here and we say user equals uh, Hugh Jackman, and if I can put it in quotes, you'll see if I go back to our application, oh, there it is right there. Hugh Jackman's right there. So now I changed Hugh Jackman's name to be not Hugh Jackman, but Hugh Jackma, right? And we go back, you'll see that it's just Hugh Jackma. So now there's more things we have to do here. We got our body of our whole thing. That's the bottom part down there. And the great thing about this is now we can make just the body. And then our app.js doesn't look like, this. We can easily figure out, what we want to get into the body and change something into the body, or we want to get into the header and change something into the header. So we're going to take our body and we're going to make another file right in here, new file, and we're going to save it as profile body.js. And we're just going to make this a function component instead of a class component. So we're going to import React. We don't need the component, and we're going to say React. And then we're going to export default, and then we're going to say function. And actually, what I could do is I could just do this. I could just return, an arrow function that returns all that stuff we just copied, boom, just like that, right? And then if I go to my app.js and I import that, so I import, let's go ahead, I import that as profile body from components profile body. And the reason I didn't use the curly brackets is because I exported it as default, so it's just going to be the default thing that is returned. But when I, you know, um, import from this file, so now I go down here and I say profile body, and then if we go back to our application again, you'll see that it's just exact same. Again, it's not about making this application better. It's about making this application more reusable. So we go back to our profile body, and now we have a few things we need to do with this. Hugh Jackman has a few things about him. He also has, a picture for his profile. So let's go ahead and start with our picture and cut it out. And you'll see that our picture is gone. And we go down here, we're just going to export avatar. Let's call it profile pic. Export const profile pic. And we're going to do this way, props, and put that in there. So now what this is this is going to be the URL we're going to use to get that used from props eventually, but we're not going to use it right now. We're just trying to make our application look good. So right up here in our body, we're going to go ahead and get that, and that's called profile pic. And I might have missed something here. Oh, right. Yes, I have to return this as that. So that'll just return the image. And now if I go back to the application, you'll see that we have our nice little Hugh Jackman picture again. Great. So now I'm going to go ahead and do this for the rest of this. So because you guys can get the gist of this, think about how you would want to separate this component. We have our body info, we have our body more, we have our card clear fix, we have our card heading. That's all this stuff right here. So that could be a component all by itself in another file even. But go ahead and see what you think you can do, and just it's really about preference and how you want your team to work with it, how you want to separate it between your teams. But I'm gonna go ahead and do it. You guys go ahead and watch it happen. All right, guys, so this is where I'm going to stop. So this is what we got. If you look at this, you can see already that we have a profile pic, the add button, the body stats. We have a body info. We also have a more button and a card. The card is very non-specific, but just for the sake of this video, it doesn't really mean much. Uh, if you look back at our application, you can see it's just this little card here. So this card could actually be, it could say movies, or it could say, plays, or something like that. But for right now, we're just going to keep it as card. So now, with all this, I do have to say that, again, this is all up to your interpretation of how the application is put together. And you probably did it differently if you did it by yourself before you looking at mine, you probably would choose something different than I would. But it's really all up to you. So now that we have all that, we have a lot of static information in here. So we want to make this all come from one place. So we don't want to, have to say, Hugh Jackman's followers is 3.5 inside of our code directly. We want to get that information from, maybe somewhere else. So if we go back to our app.js, we're going to go ahead and make a variable called hue right here, down here, and we're going to make that equal to all the values that Hugh Jackman has. So if we go back, and yes, of course I have an error right now, and inside my nice little code pin here, I have that actual variable. Don't even need this. Great, so now we have our Hugh Jackman variable, right? So now what we need to do is pass the correct information to the correct um, components. So the header, if we go to our header, you see that our header has, the name of the user. So we're going to change this actually to name. And if we go back real quick, yeah, that's gonna be fine. So let's go ahead and say name here, and this name, and these tags that we have here, we're actually going to pass it in from the props. So we're going to say tags here, boom, just like that, and then this is the image, this is the header image. So we're going to change this source to be actually equal to header image. And right up here, we're going to get that header image from our props that we pass in. And then we get a menu button is fine, search button is fine. And then tags is also fine. Header stats, that probably is going to be something that needs props. Yep, look at that, there's our header stats. So we're going to get our stats from that props right there. So we say const stats, and from our props, then we're going to go ahead and loop through our stats, or map through our stats. So we can say stats.map, and we're going to return, that's going to take a function, and it's going to return, and let's see, I think that's all we have in here that we want to do. So what this needs is we need some stats that are going to be passed in here. So stats are going to be passed in here. Great, so we're also going to pass that here. So the four things that we need here are the stats, the name, the tags, and the header image, which we have all inside of our thing right here. So we're going to pass that to our header. So we say, I think that's all we need for that. So if I save that, let's look back here, make sure we got everything that we need. Stat value. Oh, looks like I made a mistake here. This is actually supposed to be stat name inside the nice little curly brackets so we can get that variable. I'm going to go ahead and do some debugging real quick. So we're going to say clog stats. Make sure we're getting that in our console here. Yes. Okay. Stats title and number. Oh, it's title and number. Why is it title and number? So if we go here and we say title, nope, I like that, but that's okay. Title and number, and we change this to stat module. It's not stat. And we also want to get that other class that was here. So that class name was equal to, I think it was stat value. So stat module and stat dash number. And we look back at our application, you'll see that we have nice little thing here. So now right down here you see a few errors, and they all say the same thing. Each child in an array or iterator should have a unique key prop, and that means that whenever we map over, an array of things, like here we're mapping over the stats, and here we're mapping over the tags, it wants to make sure that each the way ReactJS wants what ReactJS wants to do is it wants to make sure that each of the children can be updated correctly. So we separate each of the children by a key tag, and it checks that tag or that key to update if the values update in the component. So we're going to give that a key of name and give this one a key of stats dot title. And usually this would be something like an ID that you would get from a MongoDB database or MySQL database that you made. But for right now, we're just going to use stat.title and stat.name. That is it for that one. And I think we're looking good. So if we go back to the application, you'll see that all our header stuff is still here. It looks nice and pretty. But now, if I go back to my app.js and I change something like the career stats from movies to a TV series, I changed it just there. And now if you look here, it says TV series. Instead of having to go find it somewhere in the HTML, I could just use it in a data. Or I can get this data from a database and, put it into our React.js application. So now let's go to our profile body and do the exact same thing. I want you guys to try to do this yourself so you can learn a little bit about how things work, try to figure out a bug that you can't figure out or anything like that, and then come back and see how I do it just to see different ways of coding. Now, while I was doing this, I realized that there's definitely a better way of doing this. I don't think you should do this every time, but there's definitely something you could do here. So say, I was about to do social stats and the card and the info and anything else like I think that's actually it. But, I don't want to have to do that for all the things um, that are going to be put inside of profile body as props. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up here and make it an object itself. So I'm going to say profile, profile props, right? And I'm going to make that equal to a few things. With ES6 deconstruction, I can go ahead and take this profile props object and go down here to profile body, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to say inside these curly brackets dot dot dot, and that's just going to take all the props from profile props here and say profile props just like that. So now I should have a social stats card, our profile image and info paragraphs inside as props of profile body. So if I go over here to profile body, I'm just going to print out our props. So we get it from here. Let's go ahead and make this a function that has a name so we know what this is, profile body. And take that out and save that. Make this look good a little bit. And we're going to get our props, clog props. We go down here into our console and you'll see that we have right here our clog from our props. So you'll see we have our card, our info, paragraphs, and profile image and social stats. So now if we go back over here, we can use all those things to our advantage. We can go right here and say social stats. But we have to take it from our props first. So const social stats, profile image. Um, what else is there? Card and info paragraphs. Card and info paragraphs. Did I capitalize that? I hope I did. I hope I was a good JavaScript developer. Yes, great. And this dot, nope, not this dot props. I would use that if I was in a class, but I'm using a function. So I'd say props just like that. Now, right here, we're going to say social stats dot map inside of our nice.js map. And best thing about components is that you can actually use them as a return from a map. So we got this nice little function, and this says we're going to return body stat. And remember, whenever we map over something, we just want to go ahead and give it a key as well. And that key for this one's going to be not E. Let's make this another stat. Easy, nice and easy. Stat dot name, I think. Name, yep, and value. So then we got that name equals, or actually that's type. We call that type here. So type equals stat dot name, and then value equals stat dot value. When we save that, when we go look at our application, you'll see again that it looks the exact same, not much of a difference. We still have this nice little body info error, 44. Oh, right here, yes. For our paragraphs, we want to have a key, and that key is going to be just the paragraph itself. The paragraphs are very unique. Body info paragraphs equals, and that's going to be info paragraphs. Great. And then down here, we're going to change this to say, from our props, we're getting our paragraphs. Instead of having it right here, check that out, props. If we go here and we go, and we see that we have a card, or we're just going to pass card to card. That's a lot of cards. Card, card, card. That's perfect. Again, guys, this is not like, the best way to do this. Of course, you want to name it um, more precisely, but just for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to do that. So, card, card, card. Now, this is a class. This is a ReactJS class. So we're going to get our props, that card that we just got. Const card equals, and then this dot props, because we are now using a class instead of the other thing. So now this is where we can get a little bit of a little bit more ridiculous about this. So right up here, since this is a class, I can give it methods that it can use for this class. So this class can have a method that says render card list, right? And this render card list can then return a components that we need for the card list. So we say render card list, and then we're going to pass in a list here. And all it's going to do is say list dot, it's going to say, yeah, list dot map. And then for each item, we're just going to, and then right here, we're going to have that item. That item is just going to be the URL itself. So we're going to say item, just like that. Great. And then we could also return it with the card list on top of it. And the way we're going to do that is we are going to return a whole thing. Boom, boom. So we copy that. Put that there. And then we have to put this inside of that. Yes. And then I got something going on here. Okay, so now if we go down here to our card list, we're going to go ahead and take this out because it's actually inside of our card here. So we take that out and we say right here in an expression that we make inside of JavaScript or JSX, we say this dot render card list, and we pass that the list from our cards. We say card dot list. If you can look at this real quick, you'll see that it says list right there. So then we say card dot, nope, not right there. Yeah, card dot list right there. And then we're also going to say card dot title right here, just like that. And now, just so you guys can see that that works, we're going to save all that. Go back to our application, and you'll see that we have, movies still right there. And I'll go ahead and change that in a second. Let's look at these errors again. Looks like I did not put the key prop on that, on one of the things. So let's go back here. Yes, I did not. I thought about it, but did not do it. Always want to do it just so we can keep React happy and keep everybody happy. Because we don't want to update arbitrarily. We want to update consistently and efficiently. That's what ReactJS does for us, as long as we put our keys. So I'm just going to say item dot. Nope, it's just item. So we go back to our profile body. You'll see that profile pic, it needs something, and that's going to be an image. So we're going to go ahead and pass it in a source right here, and that's going to be the profile image. Right, and then we go right here and we take this out and we just make it the source. Right, and I'm going to go ahead and deconstruct this right out of there, right out of the arguments, and say source. And there we go. I think that should be it. If we go back, yeah, let's go back. You'll see that we have that. We have the great thing right there. And that is it, guys. That's really it. I'm going to go ahead and clean this up really quickly. Let's just take out the logo here because we're not using it. Yeah. So great, guys. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. Let me know what I can do better, what you think you have a problem with, what you want to see next. Really, I'm here for you guys to see what you guys need and what you really want to see when it comes to React.js. I'm planning on doing something with Redux. I'm planning on doing something with the states because that's another thing that you definitely should be using inside your applications. And again, guys, I appreciate you watching all the way through. You have a good one. Until the next line of code, I'm Leon. I'll see you.